Great. So again, welcome everyone to our webinar today on an introduction to data management plans. Thank you for joining us today. This session is being recorded and you'll receive a notification when that recording and the slides are available to you. So I'm Julie Goldman, Research Data Services Librarian at Countway Library over at the Harvard Medical School. And today I'm also joined by my colleague, Megan Kerr, archivist and records manager from the Center for the History of Medicine, also here at Countway. We are members of the Longwood Medical Area Research Data Management Working Group that offers guidance and recommended practices for managing data. We do maintain a website full of resources and information. I will drop that link into the chat. If you have not visited that website, please do check it out for all of the things listed on the slide, including information on data management plans and the DMP tool, which we will discuss today. So in today's short session, we are going to be talking all about data management planning. We will cover why data management plans are important. We also want to review the forthcoming NIH policy for data management and sharing, and we'll show some example data management plan language around that new policy. We also hope to introduce the DMP tool platform and some templates, which will help you in writing your data management plans. So I'm going to now turn over the presentation to Meg.
Great. So, go back one more. Perfect. So first, to understand why we need data management plans, it's important to review what data management actually entails. Data management is the active and ongoing management of data throughout its life cycle. So managing your data includes a lot of activities, including storage, organization, documentation, the accessibility of the data, and ultimately the dissemination of your research data. So effective data management is crucial to establishing the governed and appropriate accessibility of data after a project's conclusion. So proper data management is characterized by standardization of your documentation. It also is where every member of your research team is following the same set of practices. So when we talk about RDM, we often refer to the life cycle of data. So here on the slide is a depiction of the research data life cycle. It shows how data management happens throughout the entirety of a research project. So you have to plan for the entire data life cycle. Oh, there we go. So this is an expanded view of the life cycle, so you can see the larger stages. There are many activities, resources, and entities that may be involved, depending on the type of project you're working on and where the research is occurring. So we've broken out for the different sections, all the different pieces that could make up that stage of the life cycle. So if you see under plan and design, that's where we have DMPs. If you look under analyze and collaborate, that's where you might find electronic lab notebooks. So there's a lot of information that comes out of these different parts of the life cycle, and we're going to be going over pieces of that today. And a common takeaway we stress when teaching data management is that it really is a continuum of practices. It's not a one and done activity. That's why it's called a life cycle. And there's different parts that are part of this whole life cycle throughout the whole process, such as storage and management. So you can see that's why it's at the center of the research data life cycle. So narrowing in on the plan and design stage, in the most basic sense, data management begins even before the project starts. So research planning concerns all aspects of preparing for a research project. So starting early is a really good idea. It includes seeking funding, awareness of university and sponsor requirements, the organization of data, the records that you need to contextualize the data, tools and resources needed to conduct the research and disseminate and possibly archive any valuable results. So an important part of RDM planning we will talk about is the understanding the type of data you'll be working with. For example, if you're working with protected health information, you have to understand the requirements around sharing your results. So when collecting human subjects data, you need to plan participant consent to collect and share their data. If you do not get their consent from the research participants, you cannot share their data that you collect. And it might end up that you actually have a sharing requirement as part of your grant. So that's something that you need to consider at the very beginning when it comes to working with human subjects. If you know you'll share data, get the permission up front from the participants. Even if you don't know if you're going to be sharing your data at the end, consider getting that permission anyways, just in case you do need, if you are working with human subjects. And the most utilized way for outlining all these elements is by creating this data management plan. Go ahead, there we go. So more and more granting agencies are requiring DMPs, but besides this requirement, there are a lot of reasons why it's beneficial to have a DMP. It makes your data more findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, which is the FAIR principles. DMPs also help make your data reproducible, helps you comply with privacy laws and the confidentiality of research subjects, and it helps make your research more efficient. The DMP really is a roadmap that any new researcher can review and understand, the project throughout the research data lifecycle. So here is a little bit more about DMPs. A DMP is a written document outlining plans for handling all of the data resulting from a research project in the short term and the long term. A DMP includes detailed procedures for data collection, all aspects of organization and processing before your data leaves your lab, and a plan to have in the plan that you have in place for when the data does need to leave your lab so others can find it and access it in perpetuity with the proper attention to any ethical and legal concerns. So while DMPs are a required document for a funding application, we highly suggest creating a DMP for any project that you're working on. And additionally, your DMP should be a living document that is revisited and updated as the project progresses. A DMP not only helps your funder, but it really will help you in your research later down the line. So we have a quick poll question. So have you written a DMP before? So you can answer that one. And do you know about the new data management and sharing plan that we'll be going over in the next section? Okay. Julie, did you share the results on your end?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So it looks like people have written a DMP before. It sounds like only a few have. And the new NIH policy for data management and sharing, which we'll go over next, it's a decent split, but most have not seen the policy. So we're going to be going over that in detail because it will be very important for NIH funding starting in 2023. Okay. So some of you did say you were aware of the new NIH policy, which does go into effect in January of next year. So we'll be reviewing some aspects and requirements of this policy, and really throughout the next year, Julie and I and others on campus will be really pushing this out there, trying to inform the research community about the new policy and its impact. So there's a long timeline for policy development for this new policy, but the Holdren memo in 2013 really set the standard for making results of federally funded research more publicly accessible. So currently, only certain NIH-funded awards require a formal DMP. However, the new NIH policy will replace this 2003 and the 2003 NIH data sharing policy that's currently in effect, and requires plans for all NIH grants that create research data. So we're still waiting for board guidance from the NIH regarding this policy, but if you are planning to seek funding from the NIH in the future, we highly suggest preparing for this new requirement. The policy applies to all research funded by the NIH that generates data, so it does not apply to training grants or anything related to infrastructure development. Some takeaways from the final plan are that costs associated with data management and sharing may be included, and this information will be in a supplemental section of the data management sharing plan. There's also a supplemental section for selecting a data repository. Plans should be revised as necessary throughout the project, and revised versions do need to be submitted to the NIH. Some examples of revisions would include moving the project in a new scientific direction, using a different data repository than originally anticipated, or a timeline revision. Plans may be made publicly available, so they should not include any proprietary or private information. This is great because now researchers will have an idea of what a DMP looks like for funded studies. This is something that we haven't seen so far from the NIH. The plans should be kept brief, 2 pages or less. However, researchers do have the ability to go past the 2 pages by using different sections of the grant application. Lastly, the data management and sharing practices that the researchers outline in their plan should be consistent with the FAIR data principles, which is a common statement found in DMP policies from various funding agencies. We'll go into more detail about DMPs in our next seminar that we'll be holding in April. We wanted to give you a look at what the NIH is looking for in the workflow for these plans. So first, plan submission is with the grant application with a brief description, the budget justification, and the full plan as a separate attachment. Plan assessment will be done by the NIH program staff and will include peer review on the budget. As mentioned, plans can be revised throughout the research process. So finally, plan compliance will be a condition of the award and incorporated into terms and conditions. So compliance will be monitored at regular reporting intervals, and NIH has stated that compliance may factor into future funding decisions. So we're still waiting for more specific guidance, but this is the information that we have at this point. And we will be providing updates in future training seminars as we get closer to the actual implementation of this plan. And there was a question about retroactively awarding to funded grants. I believe it is only grants being awarded after the policy has come into place. So it's not going to be looking back at already funded grants. So while data management plans are standard for outlining how data will be handled throughout an entire project, there is no official standard structure for those plans. So different funding agencies have created their own templates outlining the information that needs to be included. So here is the template for required elements in this new NIH policy. So there's data type, related tools, software and code, standards, data preservation, access and associated timelines, access, distribution or reuse considerations, and the oversight of data management and sharing. So we're going to briefly go over those 6 sections, but if you want to learn more detailed information about each one of these, we'll be going over this more in depth in our next class. So for data types, identify the estimated type of data to be generated, which data will be preserved and shared, and any associated documentation. For the related tools and software section, you should include any tools and software that's needed to actually manipulate and access the data. Standards means which data standards will be applied to scientific data and metadata, and we'll provide some examples of this shortly. Data preservation, access, and associated timelines should include the proposed repository to be used, how data will be findable and accessible, and when data will be made available and for how long. For access, distribution, or reuse considerations, you really should include a description of factors potentially affecting data access, distribution, or reuse related to informed consent or privacy and confidentiality protections. So for example, whether and how access to human data will be controlled. And finally, oversight of data management and sharing includes how plan compliance will be monitored and who will manage the different aspects of the plan. Let me see. There we go. So here's some examples that we wanted to show. So while many scientific fields have developed and adopted common data standards, others have not. So for in this first example, you can see they're stating there are no formal standards for our data type, but as things go, we'll look at best practices for developing a standardized way of describing our data. So in such cases, the plan may indicate that there's no consensus for what should be done, but you do need to state that. However, the more information about data formats, data dictionaries, data identifiers, definitions, unique identifiers, anything that you can include is really encouraged. So be sure to think about documentation for capturing the meaning of variable names, codes, information that's missing about the data, and other metadata. And so in the second example too, I just want to point out, they're saying we're looking at the format type. So they're saying we're going to be using open file formats, which would be .txt files and for our data, and the definitions will be in our code book. So really trying to give some more detailed information about how you're actually storing these files and what formats. In this example, preservation and access and timelines are clearly described. The data will be shared in a repository, and the repository is named. So in this case, it's Zenodo. Access to the repository is described as well, and this states that it's freely accessible to the public and freely available. Also described is the fact that the data set will be assigned a DOI by the repository once it's published, which is a type of unique identifier. Both ends of the timeline are described as well, so when the data will be made available and how long that data will be available. The NIH expects that in drafting plans, researchers need to maximize the appropriate sharing of scientific data generated from NIH-funded or conducted research. So as I mentioned, you have to be consistent with privacy, security, and any proprietary issues. So in this first example, they're saying to ensure participant consent for data sharing, we'll make sure that any personal identifying information will be removed. And those will also be made known in the consent documents. So be sure to include any applicable factors that affect access, and you want to make sure that it's known what can, if there's information that you cannot share, how, what types of ways you can share information, either if it's de-identified or there's, in this last example, it says to protect the participant privacy and confidentiality, shared data will be de-identified using the safe harbor method per the HIPAA Privacy Act. So there's multiple ways of de-identifying data, and this is just one of them. So making sure that you're specific about how you're going to go about protecting the privacy and confidentiality of people participating in your research. So now I'm going to turn it over to Julie for the second question. Do you have a better understanding about data management plans? It's very brief and quick, but hopefully you learned a little something.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Meg. Yeah, so I hope that was a good overview introduction to data management plans for those of you who have not written one before. And of course, if you have questions, you can plop those into the chat. And as Meg mentioned, we do have another opportunity to dive deeper into DMPs in our next seminar this month, or next month, as well as future seminars we'll hold this year. Great, so I'll end the poll there. Thank you all for answering that question. For those of you who do have questions about DMPs, as you said, please enter them into the chat, or we'll give a way for you to provide feedback and contact us in the future. And yes, to answer the question in the chat, we will send out an email with the slides. So these slides will be available to you to review. So yes, if you do have questions about different aspects of data management plans, we do have plenty of resources to help you. And we have classes and video recordings on each of these. And you can find, again, more information about these resources on our website. Let me drop the website link into the chat again for those of you who missed it at the beginning. And we do want to quickly review, in the time remaining, a very important resource for helping you construct a data management plan, which is the DMP tool, and then also point you to some customized templates that we have created. So DMP tool is a free tool to help you create data management plans that fulfill the requirements of different funders, like the forthcoming NIH policy Megan reviewed. While anyone can use DMP tool, if you log in with your Harvard Key credentials, as a Harvard affiliate, this opens new templates and guidance tailored to you specifically here at Harvard. And we have created 2 Harvard-specific templates that keep the structure of a typical data management plan, but they also include example texts, some additional guiding prompts, and links to Harvard policies and resources to help you out. And specifically using that new guidance from the NIH, we have a template for biomedical data. And regarding writing data management plans and using DMP tool, we are happy to meet with you to discuss writing a data management plan, review any draft plans that you have, or if you need help with DMP tool. So I do want to quickly go through a little demo so you can get started. This is the website for DMP tool, and this will be a very quick demo to get you logged in and set up, and then we will work through a longer demonstration in our upcoming class. So hopefully this will get you started today, but then we will dive deeper next time. So when you come to DMP tool, as I mentioned, Harvard is an affiliated institution, so you can sign in using your Harvard key to access institutional specific templates and guidance. DMP tool actually totally redid their platform just last week. So if you haven't visited DMP tool, or if you're coming back to visiting DMP tool, it may look a little different to you as it did to me last week when I was putting together these slides. So to log in now, you just enter your email address and into this box right here. As I said, anyone can use DMP tool, so you can sign up with any email address. If you do want to sign in with your Harvard credentials, this is where you would put your, at Harvard or at harvard.edu address. So once I've entered my Harvard email here, I get the prompt to sign in to Harvard University. So I want to click that to continue, and that's when I would be prompted to sign in with Harvard Key through our Harvard Key portal. So entering my credentials here, I sign in. You may have to set up a profile the very first time you log in, so there may be an extra step here if you have never logged into DMP tool before. But when you come to DMP tool, you'll be dropped onto your dashboard. So let me just give you a tour of a few features here. So on my dashboard, we see a list of project data management plans that I am either a owner of or I've been added as an editor to. We also have some helpful links, including an email address to our team to get help with data management plans and DMP tool. So let's quickly walk through creating a data management plan. You can either do this by clicking on Create Plan from either the bottom or the top menu. Clicking Create Plan brings us to a form to fill out some information about the project that we are starting. So you would enter a title for your project. You can also indicate if this project is for educational or just testing purposes. You would select the research organization if applicable. It should automatically come up with Harvard if you're signed in with your credentials. And then lastly, you can select the funding agency you want to work with their data management plan template. So what that looks like, for example, we can select NIH as the primary funding agency. We see a couple of options here because we see that NIH has a genomic data sharing template. That's specifically for if you're working with genomic data, you must make that available. And then we see the current template that we have for NIH, and then we also see the forthcoming template for that DMSP. That is specifically what Megan reviewed today. So that's if you were to select a funder, a funding organization for this project. That's what we just did. So alternatively, I want to show you that if we select no funder, this is where we can choose a Harvard-specific data management plan template. So selecting no funder, that brings up your option to select either the Harvard Medical School biomedical template or this Harvard University general template. So making our selection here, we are now ready to create our plan. So our plan has been created and we see a few tabs to organize our work. I'm going to jump quickly through this since we are running short on time. So we would enter our project details. Specifically, I want to call out the guidance. As I mentioned, we have added Harvard-specific guidance to DMP tool. So we really highly suggest that you select the Harvard University box so that you get all of that information that we have added to DMP tool for you, including links to resources, links to policies that will really help you write your plan. And then when you're ready to write your plan, we see an accordion menu of those sections of the DMP template. These sections look a little different from the ones that Megan reviewed because these are the sections we created for our Harvard template, but they're relatively the same and call for lots of the same information. So as we can see, when you're in each section, you will see some guiding prompts, some questions to answer, a text box to add your text for your plan. And then below, you'll also see all of those sample texts, those example answers that we have come up as part of our data management working group here on the Longwood campus. So lots of examples for you to review and tailor to your project needs. And then over on the right, of course, is a place for all that guidance as well as comments as you work collaboratively on your plan. That was a very quick overview. If you need more information, please visit our website to learn more about data management plans. That concludes today's session. So I just want to highlight some takeaways that data management is important to keep data safe from harm and make data usable and discoverable in the future. A data management plan includes strategies and processes for organization, description, preservation, and sharing data. As we saw, funding agencies have their own data management planning policy, and you can use DMP tool to help you create your data management plan. As I mentioned, we're available to help you write your plan. So please feel free to contact us using the contact link from our website. We would also love to hear your feedback on today's session. There's a survey link I've dropped in the chat. I will also send out that link in a follow-up email with these slides and a link to the recording of today's session. And then lastly, of course, as I mentioned throughout today, we do have an upcoming seminar on April 13th. That will be a full hour review on data management plans and hopefully get you writing a data management plan. Megan and I are available to stick around if anyone has any burning questions about data management plans. But if not, we hope to see you at a future seminar on data management plans. So thank you, everyone.